difficulties. There we go. We're now rolling along. Some audio difficulties on our end, but we'll have the VOD up on this, so that'll we'll be able to go back and check all that out. But again, let's talk about, you have this group of newcomers, and this is a great way to get them all on television for them to make an impact. You have them wreck the tag champions and all the tag team contenders. You have them wreck Obafemi, which is really one of the few times they've made Femi look weak. And anyway, it took 4 guys to do it.
Yeah.
Clearly some version of the Shield triple power bomb with 4 people, with them tossing him to the other 2 guys to finish off the power bomb. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. Obviously, with Jordan Grace involved in the women's main event picture on NXT, that's going to give you some matches that people are going to want to see. I thought, you look at some of the other results. The Ethan Page one made a lot of sense. You kind of called that, how it was kind of set up that Evans got a lot of the offense in the match. It's almost made you think that Page was going to end up winning. Curious to see if he's next to go get another shot at the world title. The Eddie Thorpe one is not that I'm shocked that they're pushing Eddie Thorpe, because he's had high hopes ever since he came in from New Japan. But the slide of Trick Williams down the card is kind of an interesting case. I feel like there are a lot of people that are down on him all of a sudden. I don't know if maybe that's building up a heel turn for him to give him that heel character before he moves up to the main roster. Now everybody's doubting him, and now he's going to turn heel, and
you still feel like his future is going to still be tied to Carmelo Hayes when he gets to the main roster. I think that's probably what's best for both of them.
Yeah, probably, because it does feel like Carmelo Hayes is kind of spinning his wheels as well. He has gotten a couple wins lately, which has kind of maybe started to propel him forward. But yeah, and if Hayes is going to be a heel, then you almost have to line Trick up as a heel as his backup, at least until you kind of redo their NXT storyline.
Which you could totally do that.
For sure.
The other thing we were thinking about watching it with that mystery group of people is it still kind of feels like they need a leader. Do you align them with Eddie Thorpe?
It's possible as well. I mean, that would make some sense. I mean, Thorpe having a group of flunkies would make a lot of sense. I mean, that was kind of the thing we speculated, is it felt like when you have a group like that, there needs to be somebody who's somewhat established to be the head of that group.
Yeah.
Whether you bring in a main roster talent, whether you bring in, or you take somebody who's kind of on the way up the card like Thorpe, who's been on TV regularly, that people can kind of associate with as a leader. That's not a bad idea.
And you can kind of do it even like the Judgment Day thing, where you have the main star who's going to be kind of a temporary fixture that someone's going to step up and remove him and then propel themselves up. You could have Thorpe lead this group until things go awry, and you pick one of the 4 dudes to be kind of the guy, and he usurps them, and then he's now a main event NXT guy.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is we still have more questions than answers with that group, because obviously it's a situation where they haven't, really developed what that group is going to be just yet. So
and what their beef is, what could possibly drive them to want to group up like this and wreak havoc? I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. So it'll be very interesting to see kind of how that shakes out. But NXT is always interesting, so we'll have to check that out on Tuesday night, obviously on the CW. Let's move on to our next story, and this is really not much of a story as much as it is a rumor. The rumor about a potential Nintendo Direct this month, because when Nintendo announced they were having a Direct in April, everybody kind of knew what that's about. They then eventually announced that that's going to be about the Switch 2. But Nintendo over the years has traditionally held a Direct in February, and everybody was kind of wondering whether that was going to happen. And it does, at least if you believe the rumors, there is going to be something from Nintendo later this month. What it is going to be, I don't think anybody really knows, other than they do believe it's not going to be anything related to the Switch 2, that it's going to be, Switch titles or, maybe updates on things that they've already announced was coming out. So, it'll be interesting to see what it ends up being. But I think for Nintendo fans, you're never going to be upset about more news. So it'll be curious to see what that news looks like.
Yeah, it will be interesting. It mentions that PH Brazil, a notable leaker, and Jeff Grubb, a gaming news insider, both are saying, "Hey, we're going to get one in February." Yeah, I mean, obviously we know Switch 2 is on the horizon, but we still need to get through this year with the Switch. The question is what they'll announce here, what they'll show, and you got to assume you're going to get more about Pokemon Legends Z to A, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, maybe Metroid Prime 4. Yeah, it'll be interesting because you're at this point now where you're like, any game that isn't out yet, you kind of want to see cross-platform where maybe there's going to be an optimized version for Switch 2, or at the very least, the game will play on both, which we know it's backwards compatible, but there's going to be some incentive to want to play it on the new hardware. I think it's also worth noting that February 27th is Pokemon Day, so there's probably going to be more Legends Z to A news there. Typical news you get will be updates to all their live service games, Pokemon Unite, Pokemon Masters EX, Cafe Mix, Pokemon Go, Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket. I don't. I'd be curious to see if we get any Generation 10 news coming out yet, because I think a lot of people are really hoping that whatever the next generation of Pokemon game looks like, it's solely on the Switch 2. Scarlet and Violet had serious performance issues coming out of the gate on Switch because they were just taxing that hardware way more than it needed to be. But yeah, I think Nintendo Direct now makes sense. It's far enough removed from the Sony State of Play where it can kind of stand on its own, and I'll be anxious to hear what we get out of it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and obviously with the Switch 2 coming, I think people are really excited about what's coming from Nintendo over the next couple of months, and I would think if we're going to get some news, we're going to find out about it pretty soon because we're already through the 17th of February. So running out of days in the month of February if they're going to get us something, like you said, Pokemon Day, almost certainly. And maybe that's the only thing we're going to get is news on Pokemon Day, which would be certainly fine with the big announcements coming up in April. But we'll certainly keep you up to date if they actually set a date for this. And if they do, we will pass that news along when we have it. One just kind of quick note that before we wrap up today, just a couple of quick notes on the Ohayocon lawsuit that is obviously continuing, and really nothing to discuss other than just a couple of dates to pass along, things that were filed last week in the Hamilton County courts. Number one, that the preliminary injunction hearing will be set for February the 20th. That's, of course, coming up on Thursday at 2 p.m., barring any kind of extension to that's going to happen. We'll see what comes out of that news. And the parties did agree to extend the temporary restraining order through February the 28th at 5 p.m. My guess is we may get more clarity on that on Thursday when you have the injunction hearing to kind of see whether they should determine that it should continue beyond that, or if it should be ended, or the case should be dropped, or it should go forward. All that stuff we're going to start getting a little more clarity on this week. So probably won't have any more updates on that until probably Friday's edition of the Nerdcast News Report. But I at least wanted to pass that stuff along for people who are kind of following along. This is kind of where we're at in this situation. So that kind of wraps up our regular news stuff. Ready to get to the Empire Express to wrap this thing up. Oh, were you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear you. Are you ready to go?
All ready.
All right. A 2012 PS Vita game, Mobile Suit Gundam Seed Battle Destiny, is getting remastered and released globally in English for the first time, coming to the Switch and Steam in May. Are you interested in checking this out?
Yeah, maybe. I've played a few Gundam games over the years. Never spent a substantial amount of time on them. Looking at the playable characters, there's so much about like the Seed universe I don't know, so I might need to check out a little more about that first. But yeah, we'll see. Two of your favorite shows, Bocchi the Rock and A Certain Scientific Railgun, will be getting sequels. It'll be Season 2 for Bocchi the Rock and Season 4 of Railgun. Which are you more excited for?
I mean, probably Bocchi the Rock. I think people are really dying for that second season of that after the first season was so good. We've gotten a lot of Railgun adapted, so honestly, I was a little surprised to see another season being adapted of it. But, it's been a great show, so I'll certainly be happy to get more of both of those. I don't think we'll see either one of them before 2026 if I had to guess. Queen's Crazy Little Thing Called Love has surpassed 1 billion streams on Spotify, joining Bohemian Rhapsody in that category for the band. What underrated Queen song or songs should have more streams?
Yeah, my initial response is almost every track off of Night at the Opera that isn't Bohemian Rhapsody. But if I had to pick something off that album, I'd go with either 39 or the Prophet song. Outside of that album, I'd say definitely Princes of the Universe.
Yeah, those are all great songs. Good Company is one of my favorite kind of under-the-radar Queen songs. And if I had to pick one, I would probably pick that one.
Styx, The Grand Illusion, and REO Speedwagon's High Infidelity albums will be performed in their entirety on the upcoming tour by the band Styx and former REO Speedwagon frontman Kevin Cronin and his band. What are the best songs on each of those albums?
Those are both great albums and ones you should definitely go out of your way to see live. Obviously, The Grand Illusion, Fooling Yourself, Come Sail Away are kind of the big tracks off of Styx's album, but Man in the Wilderness is a great song off the second side of that. And then REO Speedwagon, Don't Let Him Go is a great opener off of that one. Take It on the Run, Keep on Loving You is the one that probably everybody knows. But honestly, Don't Let Him Go is a classic track off of that one. And finally, Dragon Quest series creator Yuji Horii stated in a live stream that the franchise's next release, Dragon Quest XII, is still fully in development. It was originally announced in 2021. If you had to guess, when will this game finally come out?
Yeah, Horii also stated that information would come out gradually on it. So based on that alone, I got to think no sooner than 2026. All we have right now is a title and a logo, and that's it. So I got to think with Toriyama's passing, that probably put a snag in things since he does the character designs. But yeah, hopefully we hear more as the year goes on and we get something next year.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see how soon that actually happens. You're right. I think with the passing of Toriyama, I think it might delay that a little bit longer, but people are really excited for it, of course, because everything Dragon Quest is going to make everybody excited. So hopefully we'll get something sometime in 2026. That's going to wrap things up for this edition of the Nerdcast News Report. You're all caught up on your news. Apologies for the technical difficulties at the beginning, but we are rolling along now and rolling to the end of this episode. We'll be back on Wednesday with another edition of the Nerdcast News Report. Coming up at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and then we'll be back on Friday as well to wrap up the week with the final edition of the Nerdcast News Report for the week. Big thanks to Rachel for joining us and helping us out with some technical difficulties, and a big thanks to Mike for joining me in studio, and a big thanks to you wherever you checked us out here on the Nerdcast Empire. That's going to wrap things up for the entire crew. I'm Matt saying so long. Don't forget to join the Empire, the Nerdcast Empire.